soil, water, hemp, nutrition, and relation between. Learn from the expert on soil, water, hemp, nutrition, and the relation between of them for growing the best cannabis. Lecturer, Head Agronomist, MBA, Bachelor of Science, BH Synergy Group. From Israel, Ehud Carmi.
Hello, dear friends. Good evening over there. And my item to talk with you today will be about soil, water, hemp, nutrition, and relation between. We'll understand the habitat of the crop, and then we'll try to understand about its nutrition requirement. We're talking about all the way that water with nutrient pass by the roots in capillarity form to the leaves and to all the particles of the plants, or parts of the plants, and it's useful and its use. First, we're talking about all the phases that the crops grow on. We'll talk about soil. We'll talk about soil because today our issue is talking about hemp crop in open field, not in greenhouse, not in indoors. That over there we will use other type of media. We'll use water as hydroponic form, or you will use substrate, inertic media, that it's not soil. We are talking about soil. Let's define it first. We'll define it as a living, breath, natural media composed from solid, liquids, and gases. It means all the three stables that we have in nature. What it provides us, what it provides everyone, it provides a habitat for all kinds of organisms. We talk about insects, other animals, organisms, microbacteria, etc. For us, as the human being, we use it as a water tank and filtration for water, for our needs, for our drinking, for our crops form, for everything that we like to use. We use the soil as a medium for any crop, but for our item, we're talking about the hemp crop, and the most important medicine. It's the most important for us today, as you see, most important medicinal solution for humanity. But this part of lecture, it's another guy will talk about. Now we're talking about micro. Let's go inside to see what's micro, how it's look a particle of the soil structure inside. That it contains clay, or it contains soil or loam, it contains quartz, it contains organic matters and minerals and everything. It contains living organism, and it contains pore of air. When it's used with air, when it's full with air, it means it's good because the plant breathes. But we still need that most of the time, when we have rain, when we have irrigation system, we fill the air with water to irrigate, to give the plant ability to drink its needs, its requirements with the nutrition element. Otherwise, it won't be able to get it from soil. Now let's try to define the three main type of soil and its characteristic of water content. We'll talk about from Mr. Sand to Miss Loam and Mr. Clay, and we'll try to define them. You know, yes, I know there is a lot of type, you'll see later, of sand. There is a lot of type of loam and clay. It means that inside of them, there is a big difference between a lot of species. But let's talk about the main road, as we say. When we talk about Mr. Sand, so it's sandy light, the soil type. From one side, its particles can be smaller or bigger, but it's the bigger part of soil. It's inertic, there is no ionization a relation between the particles. So it means that there is a lot of pore between the particles, that water go inside with a better drainage. So the volume of the pore is very high, but the saturation of water is going under because ability to capture the water is not so good. When we're going to Misloam, we see it's cyan medium. It's the volume weight is a little bit down. The pore volume is a little bit down, but the saturation is going up. The same is with heavy clay. When we want to know, to define which is the ideal soil for hemp growth, we're talking about more or less, it's a line, it's not always, it's more or less that 50% from it will contain from solid, it's mean organic solid, organic matters, or everything inside the solid in the soil, and the other 50 will divide it to two. First, it's pore space. 50% from the pore space, it's better. It will be with air that we can all the time, the plant all the time can breathe in a good rhythm and in a form that lets him grow up. And it needs its water to take it to its requirement and its element, to use it to the element in form from the soil. If we'll talk about, if will be too much water inside the soil, the plant won't be able to drink or to get its water requirement, won't be able to get its nutrient requirement, and it will have problem to breathe. So step by step, it will start to wilt. If we want to just to define even inside the soil, type of soil, the water retention, we can see it here that as far as the particles are bigger, the pore volume between them is bigger too, but the drainage is better, and the form of the ability of the soil to hold water and to get the need for the plant is not so good. So it means that in this form of crop, we will need to irrigate more in small quantities, but more times a day to give its needs, so that every time the plant will get maximum water inside that is needed. If we're trying to see about the difference between what's going on between field capacity and wilting point, we can see as when we have problem of not much water, we have only hygroscopic water, the ability of the plant to take the water from the soil, it's not so good. It's adhere, and the particles are not available to plant. In field capacity, there is enough water. The micropores can hold the water. It's available to the plant roots, and it can absorb it. All the time, all the water going in gravitational water. We're talking about the drainage and the form, how to use it. Just to see, to differ between them, if we are talking about field capacity, enough water, see what a beautiful plant with a beautiful flowering as we did for our needs that we have over there to get a bit better yield. And from the other side, what's happened when we are in a wilting point, not enough water, bad situation for our crop. We're talking now about soil about water, about this habitat. Now, how the hemp plant use the nutrient to transport it to the roots, how it use it, this we'll not talk about here. We talk about irrigation, we talk about rain. The movement of the nutrient, it's an active one by diffusion from by the water from the soil to the roots, and that take it inside. It depends on the soil quality and the irrigation technique. We need to adapt irrigation technique to the soil types, to our crop, to our varieties and its need, and to if we'll do it better and our technique better, if we'll irrigate it by drip irrigation, or by sprinklers, it's other thing. Every time we have to adjust our irrigation form. We're talking about the form. Now let's talking about the elements. When we're talking about elements and the rule of the plant nutrition, we have always to remember that we have three species of elements. We have macro element, the NPK, the three main for the needs. We have macro micro elements. It's the mean of the elements that we need in quantities, smaller quantities than the NPK, but we still need them in a big quantity against the other micro elements that are not so big. First, we'll start about nitrogen. We know we as the human being, we have more than 70% of nitrogen in the air, and it's not only for us, it's important for us in our meals. It's important for the plant growth, especially during its vegetative phase. It's increased its protein in the leaves, in the seed. It's very important component to get bigger the cell, the radionuclides. It's most important part in the chlorophyll and the protein and the fat acids. And when we have a deficiency, from otherwise it can be toxic, but we're talking about deficiency, we can see that there is a big chlorosis in the leaves. It's going from the margin to the center. And finally, when the plant doesn't have enough nitrogen, its nutrition, our crop will go down, and we don't like it. When we're talking about the other one, the phosphorus, it's most important look, when we have an acid root zone, the phosphorus is more valuable to the plant. The plant start to take the phosphorus from the soil. It makes the root zone more acid. The root zone, the root get bigger and bigger, and the plant start to grow up, but it most increase our flowering, reproductive phases. And for our crops, the hemp crop, the most important for us, the most interest is the other flowers. It's increased, you can see it's increased the root growth and the division of the cellular and nutrient absorption. As I told you, when I talk about deficiency of that, we'll see a lot of necrotic. Here you can see a lot of necrotic spots among the main vein of the leaves. The third part of the macro elements is the potassium. the potassium improves the hemp quality. If we said that nitrogen is making the flowering of the plant, it make it bigger, the potassium gives some stronger parts, give it some quality inside. So this is the reason it make it bigger. It's participate in enzyme activation, and it take part in the photosynthesis, as we know, the other part of nutrition for the plant, as when it took it from the sun and from the air. The most important that carbohydrate, it transfers carbohydrates from the leaves to the roots, and ions from the roots to the leaves. As we can see here, it's now you have the chlorosis and triads in the margin here of the leaf. This is how it seems like potassium deficiency and in the crop. Now we pass we talk about calcium. It's one of the major micro elements of the crop. It's most important to the cellular structure and its division. And we talk about it. It's like a reaction, some reaction in the plant. And when we have a problem of it, we will see chlorosis and the degeneration of the roots. And it's most important, it's the toxicity of the boron. We'll talk it later, what's going on with the boron. The magnesium, it's most important as for element of the chlorophyll. It's responsible for the photosynthesis, etc. We'll go on. We can see what's going on to chlorosis between the nerves and to the edge of the center from the too much phosphorus and less magnesium when we have this problem. We can see now we have sulfur and iron, most important microelements too, component for certain amino acids, and the iron is most important for the synthesis of the chlorophyll. Most of the time we will see chlorosis in leaves. A lot of people think that chlorosis leaves always it's iron. No, sometimes as we saw it's come from, it seems like nitrogen, but it's about nitrogen or too much water, but this is for another day. Bore, I told you, bore is in very, even in less than promille, it's need for the plant, but it's most important to activate some enzymes. And it's most important for the thickness of thickening and hardening the cell wall. But from the other side, a little bit too much, more than less than 0.0.01, and it can be toxic for crops and make some damage. I give you shortly, if later someone I want to ask me to get more recommendation about fertigation or fertilizing plants, I will be glad to give it. But most important is here as you see is the potassium. We used to give more or less in a hand rule like 35 kilogram per 1 dunam for quadrat meters. And if we don't have any soil analysis to see what we have and we don't know how to define, we usually this will be the quantities as you see here that we will have to give the crop. If we want to defer it, and we will defer it, the form, let's say the form between the relation between the NPK during our crop stages will can before the will give what will give before planting. You can see quantities, and after the blooming period, you see we'll put more and more potassium and less nitrogen now, and more more phosphorus we need for our needs. It's this plan, it can be divided more exactly during our needs. It's only a line. If anyone want to ask me a question, here I am, and I hope, thanks for your attention. I hope it was a good and interest for you.